cost of coalition. The cost of living is getting astronomically high. It's forcing people to choosing between heating and eating. So I think now more than ever, it's time to actually come together, have a proper discussion about how it's affecting us and where to move forward from here to actually get something done about it. I'm Bec Fahy. I'm from the CATU branch in Limerick, which is the Community Action and Tenants Union. We would help to organise tenants against illegal evictions and just general bad behaviour by their landlords, so they can stand up for themselves and fight back against that, because there's several crises happening all in one year. I just wanted to particularly highlight the fact that even though this is the cost of living coalition meeting, really it's a cost of living and housing crisis, because we're hearing reports of the electricity bills amounting to €5,000 a year for the average household, which is astronomical. But it's easy to forget that some people are paying half of that amount per month in terms of rent. So it's important to not let that issue also fall under the wayside when it comes to dealing with this massive crisis that we're all facing at the moment. So yeah, I want to welcome you all here, and we have 4 fantastic speakers from the Kerry area today. We have Mary Nolan here from the Women's Interactive Network. We have Bec Fahy, she's the People for Profit Kerry rep. We have James Hussey from the Cumann Iosaef. Yeah, and Cumann Iosaef Community Centre. Yeah, and then we also have Tralee, who is the Sinn Féin TD for this area. Yeah, so I think the first speaker is going to be Bec Fahy today. Just to give Bec Fahy a quick introduction, she's one of the founding members of the Cost of Living Coalition here in Kerry. She's originally from South Wales and moved to Kerry 25 years ago. During her 25 years in Ireland, she has built a strong background in community development, human rights activism and mental health care. She has completed a Masters in Social Policy in UCC and has been a lifelong campaigner on equality and social justice issues such as women's rights, anti-racism and housing. Currently, Bec is a project manager for Travellers of North Cork, lectures part-time for social policy and community leadership at UCC, and is a volunteer board member with the Phoenix Women's Centre in Tralee. So without further ado, I'll let Bec start.
Okay then, I suppose just thank you all very much for coming along. The reason that we wanted to bring you all together before the big demonstration on Saturday is because we need to talk about the fact that this is not an issue that has just sprung up overnight. This has been decades in the making. We've had successive governments that have failed to invest in public services, failed to invest in the community, and I think in services and infrastructure. So this is why we're in the situation we're in today. So I suppose there was a few points I wanted to make. I'm not going to talk about the impact on pensioners or the impact on women, because we've got some very good speakers that are going to cover those areas. But I want to talk about the impact that I see on communities, because I'm a community worker and I'm out with the community every day. And the communities I work with largely are people that are already struggling. So the cost of living crisis and housing crisis is making that worse. So with housing, we've got a problem with the fact that we have rents now that are 50% higher than they were in the Celtic Tiger. That's if people can actually get accommodation in the first place. I work with the traveller community, and it's accommodation for the traveller community is very hard to access. And when it is, what we're finding is that the issue that we're having with fuel poverty for people that are living in trailers. We had €200 given to us as I suppose, a softener for the electricity bills that were rising. For families that were using generators in trailers, or people living in rural areas that are living in caravans, they couldn't access that. They are paying on average €125 a week for fuel, for heating and for cooking. whereas the average household would have been paying 40. Now we're all going to see that rise, and we're all going to see that rise dramatically. But I suppose the point I want to get across is that the cost of living crisis is not going to hit us all equally. They're telling us we're all in this together, but I'm sorry, no, we're not.
No.
Is that there are some people that are actually using food banks already. There are some people that are the working poor. They have jobs, but those jobs are not paying them a livable wage. So they're not able to manage on what they have. And there's other people that are just being left behind. So for us to actually look at it and say we're in this together, I'm sorry that there are already disadvantaged. And some of those disadvantaged are workers. And this is an area that we have to focus on, because we have a huge issue now with workers' wages not staying in line with the cost of inflation. Inflation has gone up 10%. We're being offered, if you're lucky enough to be offered a pay rise at all, you're being offered pay increases that are below inflation, which in effect is a pay cut. So they're saying at a time where we're struggling, we have no money, communities are struggling to buy food, to pay for their fuel, and then they're saying, right, we're actually just going to cut your wages in effect. I work for a Section 39 company, so some of you may have heard that Enable Island and in Tralee will be on strike tomorrow. They're a Section 39 company, and for those of you who don't know, that's a company who's funded through the HSE to provide community services. Since 2008, since the banking crisis, staff in our project have not had one pay increase, they've not had any increment rises, and they don't get pensions. The majority of staff in the projects are women, and they're working part-time. So for part-time workers, their take-home pay would be at poverty level. So I just want you to actually think about that for a moment. We've got people that are working really hard in community services, with homeless services, with disability services, and they are being paid poverty wages in one of the richest countries in the world. So in effect, we don't have a cost of living crisis, we have a greed crisis. There's money in this country, it's just in the wrong hands. And it's not being fairly distributed among the people who are working in our communities. And so I suppose that I would like to see as many people out tomorrow supporting the workers for Enable Island, because they really do need your support. But I'd really like to see you all out on Saturday as well, if you can. I know it's a trek from Kerry up to Dublin, but it's really important at this point that we send a clear message to government that we need action, and we need radical action to deal with this. It's like I said, this is not something that's happened overnight. We started to see fuel prices increasing during COVID. We started to see huge profiteering by food and energy companies. And we're being told at the moment that it's all to do with the war in Ukraine. And I'm sorry, but I won't use blasphemy, but it's just rubbish. You know, it's like this is a crisis that has been created for decades. And we need to actually recognise that it is going to take us all to work together to actually find solutions for ordinary people in our communities. The food and energy prices, I don't know about you, but I have been really shocked by how much I've seen food go up, almost for some like basic foodstuffs, 19% since March of this year. It's like, for energy, there are small businesses who struggled through COVID, who barely survived through COVID. They're seeing their electricity bills now double, and that's just the start of it. And I'm sorry, but small backhanders from the government to cushion that is not going to be enough to keep those companies alive. And it's like, we have sections of the sort of businesses that in the service industry that nearly collapsed during COVID. We're talking about, you know, our pubs, our music industry, where people lost all their work through COVID. They're just getting back on their feet, and now they're seeing hikes. And those electricity hikes are not just in the cost of electricity they're using, it's in their standing charges. And this is from companies, one of the companies, ESB, I think made over 600 million in profits last year. That's a state-owned company. So it's so I said it is wrong that we're seeing huge profiteering at a time where ordinary people are struggling. In rural Ireland, we are already paying through the nose for poor services, and I think we're already paying more for food and more for transport than anybody else. It's like we have small family farms who are struggling now with feed for animals. You know, it is not okay. Rural Ireland needs more support, and it's like, and I think that we need to start shouting louder. For our young people, I've been working with a group of young people in the last week. We've been struggling to get young travellers into education. We've been told it's really important, and they know it's really important. They know their future depends on it. Young people in rural communities are turning down college places because they cannot afford the rents in the cities. They cannot afford the transport to get them there. Some of them are willing to spend 2 hours a day getting to college, but they can't afford it. And we're outside the LEAP card system. So our young people are not supported in the same way that a young person in the city who might have college around the corner can just walk to. Our young people can't. So we are going to start hemorrhaging young people from rural areas again, and that is going to decimate our communities. So I think that it's really important that we see this as an issue that overlaps lots of different areas. You know, it's not just about energy poverty. It's not just about food. It is about transport. It's about infrastructure. And mainly it's about the way communities are valued in our country. And I think that one thing we're not seeing is we're not seeing the value placed on the work people do in the community to keep communities functioning. So I think that for us, the things that we need to look at, it's like I said, are radical actions. We need to make sure that energy prices are capped and that we freeze increases. We can't cope with any more increases on this. People, I mean, we have a soup kitchen in Tralee. And I'm sorry that I know that it's a valuable support, but we should be ashamed that we need that. You know, I don't want to see politicians going and smiling, opening food banks and soup kitchens like they do in the UK. I think we should be ashamed that that's the state we've got ourselves into in a rich country. We need to impose rent controls, and that's urgent, because our young people don't have any hope that they will ever have a home of their own. They are living in substandard accommodation if they can get it at all. And we are getting back to starting to see tenements forming again. And I think we none of us should be sort of happy to allow that to happen. We need a state company to start retrofitting homes. It can't be left to see whether people can afford 30, 40,000 for a retrofit in their homes. We need to start cutting energy use. We know we have to do that. Because of the climate crisis. People are willing to do it, but they can't afford it at the moment. So we need a state company to actually retrofit homes, and that will help cut people's energy bills. We need a minimum wage that is livable.
What's the thing about your smart meters I'm hearing?
Will the questions still after the speakers? There's plenty of time for the questions from the floor then. So thank you.
That's all right. I'm almost finished, and then it's like we can pass on. So it's we need a minimum wage and a living wage. So we're suggesting that minimum wage is €15 an hour to get people out of poverty. And we need to impose a windfall tax on companies who were making huge profits when everybody else was suffering, and a wealth tax on top earners. I mean, we have a tax system that seems to be socialism for the very wealthy, and the rest of us just have to make do, and that is not okay. We need socialism for all of us. We don't need the corporations to be the ones that get all the benefits of this country. So it's like I said, I think the crisis itself is being fueled by greed and policies that are just not focused on the needs of people. And I believe that if the government won't act, we need to show them that the people of this country will.
Oh, I can say what I like over the phone, and people don't know who I am. And you know, I have to say the truth. That's first of all. first of all, I'm Cumann Iosaef as an umbrella, and the umbrella covers community. Our first thing is community, nothing else. We just want the community, the elderly, the vulnerable, and the people that can't look after themselves. That's what we do. So first of all, the first that I'll do is, we do voluntary housing. We have 22 units built. We have 2 in fire, 2 houses, family houses and fires. We have 9 bungalows. Now, the 22 units are state of the art, and the 22 units are there for the elderly. People can't look after themselves. People in houses and they can't live in the house. They want to downsize. Now, what we pay, and this is since the day we had, you have a unit above there for €40. €40. That covers your heating and your refuge. And it's €40, that's the way it's staying. We're asked several times. That's it. That's what people can afford. And it's getting worse now, so it's nice now that we have €40, that's it. The 2 houses and fires are €50 because they're family. And the bungalows are €30. Why? Because they have to pay for their bills. And I think that's a very fair and just way to do things. And we'll stay doing that unless somebody comes down and says, you can't do it no more. We don't make profit. We don't want profit. But not true. And if we do make profit, it goes back into them houses again. We have 16 units put in for 7 years. 7 years, they're like this. Past, money given out, money spent on it, not by us, by other people. We still haven't done 16 units, but I promised last year to be starting, this year to be started, the year after. Look, we don't know when they're going to start, to be quite honest. We're the ones put in for it, we're the ones who got it. That's one argument I'm going to have. Now, my next one could be, the next umbrella, that's one umbrella gone. The next umbrella is, we look after the elderly, their houses, their gardens, the painting if they can't afford painting. We look after the upgraded house. We look after what way they're living. Are they living in conditions that not acceptable? And they are. And they are. And I got a letter one time off a doctor, and I'm going to tell you straight on. The letter was, this woman is living in terrible conditions. She's vulnerable, she's blind, but that's the way she wants to live. Now, I had a meeting with yards, and that's the way she wants to live. So we're in this situation now where you have an elderly person, 80, 90 years of age, don't even know where she is, but that's the way she wants to live. It's not the way she wants to live, so when we do it, right, it takes a bit of time, you meet the family, you talk to people, but we get there. Sooner or later we get there. Oh, the most important, you think they are important, is we do Meals on Wheels. Now that's where we're coming down to. The price of everything has gone up. All we receive of the government is 60% of the wages, nothing else. No money for food, no money for trucks, no money for diesel, no money for nothing. We have to come up with that ourselves. How do you come up with it? Charge the elderly more for their meals. No, we're not going to do it. It's €5 a meal, it stays there. And that's what their answer is, charge more to the elderly. How can you do that? What's the justification? Can anyone turn around from any department, it's a government department, and that's what they tell us. Now we also do the special school, there's 110 meals going up there, and we do that. They pay for the food because they get a subsidy for the food, but we do all the cooking, the delivery and everything else. That's 110 and 100 a day of the elderly, and if something don't change, we have to say goodbye. Now it's getting worse out there, they need more, there's more people going under. If somebody don't do something, and it'll be on you and on every politician in Kerry, and this is where it's going, because come Christmas, we'll be saying goodbye to it. If it stays the way it is, nothing to say, but we can't do it. At the moment, next Christmas will be 9,000 in debt. The only way you can gather it back is charge the elderly, because that's the position they have to say. We are not for profit. We don't want profit. We want to break even and make everybody happy and feed everybody, but it's coming to that. So, this is where we're at the moment. I'm going to tell you straight out, there's no comeback, there's nothing else you can do unless they do something for us. And they're not. I met politicians, I've been above the all, it's 5 or 6 times I met Paz, Spain Fall, I met them all above there. Martin brought us up one time, is that right, Martin? To meet, arguing again about stuff like that. Now remember, the people in Meals on Wheels, on that kind of wage, didn't close down one day in COVID, not one day, not one bank holiday. We don't take bank holidays off because that means a person's not getting paid no money. And there's no, I won't use language, that's the way it works. That's the way it has to work. And Saturdays and Sundays, we freeze the meals and give them as well. So there's no day of Christmas, everybody's fed Christmas. Now that's where they're giving people, lovely people there. I'm not cutting down the nurses, they're the same way, but we did it. And some of my people are on community employment, 20 quid more than what to get down the door. And they went out and done all that. And that's the kickback they're giving us. So that's my giving out. But tonight, the other point is we're not giving up. We have 4 different community employment work. There's 85 people working out of Cumann Iosaef. Between community employment, we have a creche as well. We have a creche after school and drop-in. That's working the same way as well.
So that's really only working for a euro now, really, isn't it?
And we'll have comments from the floor after
But it is
working.
fair play to them. They're working for 20 quid more than they go. Instead of staying in bed, they want to go out. My other argument is, there's 60, and we got to 60, you can say it for a while. I want to bring down people 55, going down to the door. They don't want to go down. And believe it or not, there's a lot of people down there, they work for me. The afternoon thought they were sacking them. I was trying to explain to it wasn't me at all, it was the system. And that's what you get. So the system has to change, there's a lot of things to change. And if they want to change it and keep big people fed, there's more older people now going to be, on the COVID they couldn't go out, so we were very busy. And every community, and that included, and cutting no one out, that included the travelling community as well. They were looked after as well as. So there was no one cut out, no one left it. That's all I have to say.